The night before the wedding should have been joyous. The house smelled of roses and expensive perfume, the kind that lingers in the air long after people leave. Everywhere I turned, there were boxes of champagne, stacks of gifts, and smiling faces rehearsing their roles for tomorrow's grand performance. I stood at the edge of the ballroom, watching as my daughter twirled in her ivory rehearsal gown. Her laughter filled the air, light and careless, like a girl who believed she had everything. And why wouldn't she? I had spent $150,000 ensuring this wedding would be the talk of the town. But then, his voice cut through the music like a shard of glass. "Tomorrow isn't for everyone," her fiancé said, smirking as he sipped his drink. "We only want important people there." Important people. The words slammed into me with the weight of a betrayal I hadn't yet named. My blood warmed, my jaw tightened. What did he mean? Important. I had invited my cousins, my old friends, neighbors who watched my daughter grow up. Were they not important? Or was it me he was dismissing? The father whose wallet had funded every silk napkin and every drop of imported wine. I tried to steady myself, but the thought kept hammering. He hadn't just spoken thoughtlessly. His tone was deliberate, sharp. He wanted me to hear it. I moved closer, careful to blend into the shadows near the curtain. From there, I heard the full poison. "They can keep the riffraff out," he continued, his arm tightening around my daughter's waist. "No need for sentimental nobodies. This is about image, prestige." My daughter giggled, not nervously, not defensively. She giggled like she agreed. That laugh gutted me more than his insult ever could. "Excuse me," I said finally, stepping forward. My voice was calm, though my heart was storming. "What was that about important people?" He turned lazily, like I was an unwelcome interruption. "Oh, nothing, sir. Just making sure the guest list stays curated." "Curated?" I repeated. "These are family, friends, people who've been there since she was born." He shrugged. "And we're grateful. But tomorrow isn't about them. It's about appearances. You wouldn't understand." I felt the room tilt. My fists curled, but I forced my voice to remain steady. Appearances fade. Family doesn't. For a second, silence stretched between us. Then he smiled, cold, dismissive. "Well, some families matter more than others." The rehearsal laughter resumed, but it no longer sounded sweet. It was hollow, distant, a mockery. I walked away, each step heavier than the last. My chest burned with humiliation, anger, and something deeper, fear. Fear that I was losing my daughter not just to marriage, but to a man who saw me as nothing but a checkbook. Upstairs, in the solitude of my room, I replayed every word. Important people, curated lists, my daughter's laugh echoing against my skull. Then, like fate tightening the noose, I heard it again. Their voices floated up through the vent. "He's trying so hard to impress," her fiancé sneered. My daughter's giggle followed, softer this time, but unmistakable. "I know. It's kind of desperate, isn't it?" The glass I was holding shattered in my hand, blood dripping onto the carpet. I wasn't just funding their wedding. I was funding my own humiliation. And in that moment, I knew something had to change. Tomorrow, the grand $150K wedding would happen, but not the way they expected. I wouldn't let it. Sleep never came to me that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the sting of my daughter's laughter, and his sneer coiled around my chest like barbed wire. Important people. Desperate. Words sharper than any knife. I had spent months, no, years, planning this wedding with her. From the first tasting of wine to the custom invitations embossed in gold, I had spared nothing. My savings, my overtime pay, the inheritance her mother left behind, all funneled into making this day perfect. I thought it was for her happiness. Now I realized it was for their performance. When dawn broke, the house was still buzzing. Florists carried boxes of roses, chefs rolled carts of crystal, decorators draped satin over tables. I stood among them like a ghost, watching the empire I built with my own hands and wallet take shape for someone else's glory. "Sir," a voice called from the hallway. It was Peter, the wedding planner's assistant, nervously clutching a folder. "We, need another signature." I frowned. "Another? Haven't I signed enough?" He hesitated, then handed me the folder. "Just routine. Payment releases for tomorrow." I flipped through the receipts, and my stomach dropped. Every single charge was under my name, every vendor tied to my accounts. There wasn't a single entry with the groom's family attached. Not one. "Wait," my voice cracked. "Where's their contribution? They promised to cover half." Peter shifted uncomfortably. "They, never paid. Said you'd reimburse." Reimburse? My blood boiled. I had been duped into funding not just half the wedding, but all of it. Every plate of caviar, every diamond centerpiece, every string quartet rehearsal, $150,000 pulled straight from my veins, dressed up as their generosity. I felt the walls close in, the chandeliers above mocking me with their hollow sparkle. I staggered into the kitchen where my daughter stood, Ella, awing over mimosas with her bridesmaids. "Claire," I said sharply. She turned, startled at the edge in my voice. "Yes, Dad?" "Did you know?" I held up the receipts, the ink smudged from the sweat of my grip. "Every expense, every dime. It's all under my name. Did you know they didn't pay a cent?" Her smile faltered. For a heartbeat, guilt flickered across her face. But then she shrugged. "It's just money, Dad. You can afford it. It's my wedding." "Just money?" I whispered, the words tasting of ash. "It's our lives. It's everything I've built. And you let him treat me like—" My voice broke. "Like I'm nothing." She crossed her arms, defensive now. "You're overreacting. You wanted this big wedding, too. Stop making it about you." The room spun. Her words were knives, each syllable twisting deeper. I wasn't just financing a betrayal. I was complicit in it. I walked out before my rage consumed me. Back in my study, I spread the receipts across the desk, each one a nail in the coffin of my trust. $150,000. The number screamed at me. And then, like poison crystallizing into clarity, another thought struck. If they wanted my money, they'd get exactly what they asked for, but not in the way they imagined. That night, I would overhear something far worse. Proof that even my daughter saw me as nothing more than a desperate fool. Night pressed heavy on the house, but I couldn't sleep. My study was littered with receipts, invoices, and contracts, $150,000 worth of betrayal staring back at me. I kept running my fingers over the numbers as though they could explain themselves. But numbers don't lie. People do. The laughter from earlier still clung to my ears. My daughter's voice, dismissing my sacrifice with that cruel phrase, "It's just money." I poured myself a drink, but even the burn of whiskey couldn't wash away the bitterness. I was a fool, a puppet dancing for their applause, and tomorrow I'd be paraded in front of their important people as nothing more than the wallet behind the show. The house finally grew quiet after midnight. Guests and bridesmaids had retreated to their rooms. The staff had gone home. Silence crept in, broken only by the occasional creak of the old beams or the faint crash of waves outside. And then I heard it. Soft voices, slipping through the air vents like poison. I froze, glass halfway to my lips. "Don't worry about him," the fiancé's voice whispered, low and confident. "He's too desperate to stop us. You saw how quickly he paid." My stomach tightened. A softer voice followed, my daughter's. "I know, but sometimes I feel guilty. He looks so tired lately." His laugh was like nails against glass. "Tired? He should be grateful. We're giving him a chance to show off. You think anyone cared about his name before this wedding? No. After tomorrow, he'll finally feel important. Thanks to me." My heart thundered. Grateful? To him? For spending my money? Then came the knife twist. "He's pathetic sometimes," my daughter said quietly. "The way he keeps asking if I'm happy, like, of course I'm happy. This wedding is perfect. But he just doesn't get it. He's trying too hard." Pathetic. The word crushed me more than any debt ever could. I wanted to storm upstairs, rip, open the door, and scream the truth in their faces. But I stayed frozen in the dark, a silent witness to my own undoing. "Don't worry," the fiancé soothed. "After tomorrow, you'll be my wife. His role is done. Then we can focus on the real plans." The real plans. My pulse pounded. What did that mean? Were there schemes beyond the wedding, beyond the humiliation already inflicted? I gripped the edge of the desk, my knuckles white, fighting the urge to lose control. For the first time, I saw it clearly. This wasn't just thoughtless arrogance. This was manipulation. He had my daughter in his palm, and I had been paying for the privilege. The voices faded into muffled silence, their whispers swallowed by the night. I sat alone in the darkness, trembling. My daughter's laughter, her fiancé's sneer, the receipts, the insults, it all merged into one unbearable truth. I wasn't a father in their story. I was a tool. But tools, I realized, can break. Tools can cut. And I had the power to make everything they built collapse. Tomorrow, I would learn just how deep his lies went, because someone unexpected was about to reveal his darkest secret. Morning arrived draped in silk and illusion. From the outside, everything looked flawless. The rehearsal hall glittered with chandeliers, rows of orchids lined the aisle, and crystal glasses sparkled as if they were filled with liquid sunlight. To the guests fluttering in and out, this was the dream wedding of the year. But to me, it was nothing but smoke and mirrors. As I moved through the venue, I saw not beauty, but fraud. Every ribbon tied, every plate polished, was stamped with the truth. Only I knew. I paid for this lie. My daughter's smile as she greeted arriving relatives wasn't joy. It was performance. And the groom, dressed immaculately even for rehearsal, carried himself like a king surveying his subjects. Inside, I was rotting. I couldn't shake the words from the night before. Pathetic, desperate, his role is done. They echoed with every step, poisoning every moment. I drifted toward the back, away from the laughter and cameras, needing air. That's when I noticed him. A man I didn't recognize, neither guest nor vendor. He stood near the catering tent, hands in his pockets, watching the groom with a sharp, unsettling focus. His suit was plain compared to the others, but his eyes carried something the rest lacked. Knowledge. I almost walked past him, but he spoke without looking at me. "You're the father, aren't you?" The question froze me. "Yes." "And you are?" Finally, he turned. His smile was thin, almost pitying. "Doesn't matter who I am. What matters is that you know who he is." He nodded toward the groom, who was laughing with a group of groomsmen. I narrowed my eyes. "What are you talking about?" The stranger leaned closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear. "He's not the man he says he is. And you're not the first one he's bled dry. My throat tightened. Explain. But he only shook his head. Not here. Too many ears. Just watch closely. Today. You'll see it. He can't keep the mask on forever. Before I could demand more, he slipped away, blending into the bustle like smoke dissolving into the air. I stood frozen, his words echoing in my mind. Not the first one he's bled dry. My gaze snapped back to the groom. He was shaking hands, flashing that perfect smile, oozing charm. To everyone else, he was the ideal son-in-law, the kind every parent would dream of. But I had seen behind the curtain, and now this stranger's warning confirmed it. The man wasn't just arrogant, he was dangerous. As the rehearsal resumed, I felt a shift in the air. Every joke he cracked, every compliment he gave now sounded rehearsed. His laughter was hollow, his embrace with my daughter just a pose. The stranger was right. The mask was slipping, subtly, but enough for me to see the cracks. I watched my daughter's hand in his, her smile wide but fragile. My chest tightened with dread. How blind had she become? How blind had I been? I wanted to warn her, but the words stuck in my throat. What could I say? She was too deep, too invested, too enchanted by the illusion. So I said nothing. I just watched. Watched the smoke and mirrors dance before my eyes, knowing now that behind them was a truth darker than I imagined. That night, as I wrestled with the stranger's warning, I would realize rage alone wasn't enough. I needed a plan, and I was ready to begin. That evening, the rehearsal glow lingered in everyone's smiles, but in me, something darker had taken root. The stranger's warning pulsed in my veins, feeding the storm already raging inside. I paced my study like a caged animal. Rage was no longer a fleeting burst. It was constant, humming beneath my skin. Every laugh I'd overheard, every insult dressed as charm, every dollar I'd poured into this spectacle, it all boiled together into something sharper. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was furious. Furious at him for using me. Furious at my daughter for letting him. Furious at myself for being blind. I slammed my fist onto the desk, rattling the mountain of receipts. $150,000. Proof of my foolishness. Proof of their arrogance. And proof that if I didn't act, tomorrow I'd be paraded like a clown in front of important people, while the groom smirked at my humiliation. Not anymore. A knock came at the door. My old friend Marcus, the family lawyer, stepped inside. He had agreed to attend the wedding more out of loyalty to me than celebration. He looked at me now, brow furrowed. "You look like hell," he said. "I feel worse," I muttered. "Marcus, tell me something. Every contract for this wedding, these receipts, they're under my name, aren't they?" He glanced at the papers scattered across the desk, adjusting his glasses. "Yes. Every vendor, every payment authorization. You insisted on handling it yourself." A bitter laugh escaped me. Insisted? More like tricked into it. He hasn't paid a dime. Not 1 cent. Marcus sighed. "Then you have leverage." I snapped my head up. "What do you mean?" He picked up one of the contracts, tapping his finger against the fine print. "You signed as primary account holder and payer. That means legally, the vendors answer to you, not them. If you wanted, you could freeze payments, cancel orders, even pull the rug out from under the whole thing." The words hit me like a thunderclap. Pull the rug out. The image lit a fire in my chest, watching their perfect wedding crumble piece by piece like a castle built on sand. Marcus leaned closer. "If you're thinking of doing something, think carefully. This isn't just money. It's your daughter's wedding." "My daughter's wedding?" I spat. "No, Marcus. This is his stage, his show. My daughter's blind, and I'm the fool paying for her chains. If I let this go on, she won't just lose her wedding, she'll lose her life to him. Marcus held my gaze for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Then be smart about it. Don't just lash out. Plan it. Make it count. His words sank into me like stone. For the first time in days, I felt something other than helplessness. I felt control. That night, as the house slept, I sat at my desk with every contract spread before me. Pen in hand, I circled clauses, noted loopholes, highlighted terms. Each line was a weapon waiting to be used. I wasn't just a desperate father anymore. I was a strategist. And tomorrow, when the mask of perfection slipped, I'd be the one pulling the strings. At midnight, with one signature, I set the wheels in motion, freezing the funds. By dawn, the groom's family would be panicking. The world outside my window slept soundly, but I was wide awake, heart thudding like a drum. My study light burned low, casting long shadows across the contracts scattered before me. Each document was no longer just paper. It was a battlefield map. I had drawn my sword at midnight. The freeze was only the first strike. Now came the second. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I logged into my accounts. Passwords I hadn't touched in months suddenly carried the weight of my daughter's future. With every click, the tension grew. My palms were damp, my throat dry. I wasn't just taking back my money. I was stripping the groom bare, robbing him of the one thing he loved more than my daughter: control. The bank officer's voice crackled through the speakerphone. Calm, almost bored. Sir, can you confirm you want to redirect the remaining $72,000 into your personal account? Yes. My voice surprised me. Steady, cold, final. And the reason for this transfer? I smiled bitterly. Correction of a mistake. There was silence on the line. Then the officer replied, Understood. Processing now. I hung up before doubt could creep in. It was done. The last of the wedding fund was gone. By morning, the empire he had built on my wallet would collapse. At 3 a.m., I drafted emails to vendors, florists, caterers, decorators, the string quartet my daughter adored. I was careful. Formal, professional, but razor-sharp beneath the politeness. Due to unforeseen circumstances, please place all services on hold until further notice. Payment authorizations are no longer valid. Thank you for your understanding. One by one, I sent them off, each ping of my outbox like the toll of a funeral bell. By the time the sun began bleeding across the horizon, my part was finished. The wedding was no longer theirs to command. It was mine. I leaned back in my chair, exhaustion washing over me. For the first time in weeks, I felt the faintest trace of peace. Not joy, not triumph, just a quiet satisfaction. Like the hush that follows a storm, heavy and foreboding. If you were in my place, I whispered into the empty room, would you have done it too? Tell me in the comments. But peace never lasts long. At 7 a.m., my phone lit up, his number flashing like an alarm. I let it ring once, twice, before answering. What the hell did you do? His voice was sharp, desperate. Good morning to you too, I replied, calm as ice. The florist just called. The caterer says they haven't been paid. Our wedding is falling apart. Don't play games with me, old man. I let the silence hang, savoring the panic in his tone. Finally, I said, You wanted a wedding for important people? Consider this your first lesson. Importance can vanish overnight. You can't do this, he snapped. Oh, but I can, I said softly. And I already have. His voice broke into a snarl. If you think you've won, you're a bigger fool than I thought. You don't know who you're dealing with. Click. The line went dead. I stared at the phone in my hand, pulse quickening. His threat wasn't empty. I could feel it. The game had only just begun. Morning bled into chaos. The house, once buzzing with laughter and excited chatter, now trembled under the weight of frantic whispers and panicked phone calls. From my study, I could hear voices rising, vendors demanding explanations, planners trying to keep calm, the groom's sharp tone cutting through it all. For a moment, I just stood at the doorway, watching. My daughter, still in her silk robe, clutched her phone, confusion painted across her delicate features. Around her, the illusion of the fairy tale was beginning to crumble. It should have satisfied me completely, and it did, partially. Yet somewhere beneath the triumph, a sliver of guilt twisted in my chest. This was her dream unraveling before her eyes. But wasn't it better she saw now, before signing her life away to a man who only loved her father's bank account? "Why are the flowers delayed?" she asked, voice tight with nerves. The wedding planner, pale and sweating, avoided her gaze. "There seems to be a billing complication." "Billing complication?" she repeated, her voice cracking. "Everything was prepaid." That was my cue. I stepped forward, slow, calm, almost like a shadow gliding across the room. "Apparently not," I said. Her eyes snapped to me, wide with desperation. "Dad, what's happening?" Before I could answer, he stormed into the room. My soon-to-be son-in-law, face red, tie loosened. He shot me a look so venomous it could curdle blood. "Nothing is wrong," he barked, addressing her. "Just some clerical errors. Your father is overreacting." "Overreacting?" I said coolly. "That's one word for it." She looked between us, caught in the tension like a moth between flames. The venue, once pristine, now resembled a battlefield. Caterers stood idle, waiting for confirmation. Florists lingered with wilted bouquets. Even the string quartet had packed their instruments back into their cases. It was almost poetic, the fairy tale she had built crumbling in slow motion around her. I stayed silent, letting the cracks reveal themselves. Later that afternoon, I found her outside, sitting on the marble steps in her robe, arms wrapped around herself. The fairy tale glow was gone from her face, replaced with something more fragile: doubt. "Dad," she whispered, staring at the horizon, "why does it feel like everything is falling apart?" I sat beside her, the weight of her question heavy in the air. "Because sometimes," I said softly, "the cracks were there all along. You're just seeing them now." Her lips trembled. "Do you think I made a mistake?" I looked at her then, really looked at her. The little girl I had raised, now a woman on the edge of the biggest choice of her life. "That's not my decision," I said. "But ask yourself this. Does he make you feel safe, or does he make you feel small?" She swallowed hard, eyes glassy. For the first time, she didn't have an answer. That night, as the house grew quiet again, I passed by the groom's study. His voice bled through the half-closed door, angry, urgent, panicked. "I don't care what it takes, just get the money back. Without it, this whole wedding collapses, do you understand? She can't know the truth." I froze in the hallway, heart hammering. She can't know the truth. But I wasn't the only one listening. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her, my daughter, standing in the shadows at the end of the hall, her face pale, her hand trembling against the wall. Her gaze met mine, full of confusion and fear. "Dad, what truth is he hiding?" Her question from the hallway echoed in my head all night. "Dad, what truth is he hiding?" I wanted to answer her, to shield her from the venom wrapped in her fiancé's smooth words. But I held back. This was her moment to see him for who he really was. If I told her, it would sound like bitterness. If she heard it from his lips, it would become truth. Morning light filled the house, but instead of joy, it brought tension thick enough to choke on. The vendors were gone. The flowers wilted in crates outside. The wedding planner, who had once paraded around with clipboards and confidence, now sat hunched in a corner, phone pressed to her ear, whispering apologies she couldn't back up. The fairy tale had collapsed into a circus. And at the center of it all stood my daughter, trembling, betrayed, but finally, awake. She cornered him in the sitting room. I stood in the doorway, unseen but present, like a silent witness. "Who were you talking to last night?" she asked, voice steady but her hands clenched. He didn't flinch. His mask slipped for only a second before he smirked, smoothing his tie as if this were another business deal. "Just handling problems. You don't need to worry." "I heard you," she pressed. "You said the wedding collapses without the money. What truth can't I know?" His smile widened, but it was hollow, brittle. "Sweetheart, you're overthinking. Your father's been meddling. He's always wanted control, and now he's using money to scare you." Her jaw tightened. "So answer me. Was this about me, or about him?" I had to grip the doorway to keep myself from stepping in. My daughter's voice cracked slightly, but she stood her ground. He sighed, exasperated, dropping the mask altogether. "You really want the truth? Fine. This wedding was never about you. It's about building something bigger. My career, my family's reputation, important people only. That's the rule. With your father's connections, his money, his name, I could have built an empire. Without him?" He shrugged coldly. "You're just a liability." The words sliced through the air like knives. Her face crumpled, tears spilling before she could stop them. She whispered, barely audible, "A liability?" That was my breaking point. I stepped forward, voice like steel. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." He spun on me, fury and arrogance flashing in his eyes. "You think you've won, old man? Money doesn't make you important. Power does. And I've got both. You pulled your little stunt with the vendors, but it won't matter. Do you know why?" He leaned closer, hissing each word. "Because she loves me. And love makes people blind." My daughter flinched, her gaze darting to me, desperate for an anchor. I wanted to embrace her, tell her she was safe, but instead I let my silence weigh heavy, forcing her to absorb every poisonous word he spoke. She needed to see it, to feel it. The room was silent except for her broken breaths. He smirked, straightening his jacket like the victor of a duel. "Now, unless you've got something else to throw at me, I suggest you step aside and let me handle our future. Important people don't wait around." My daughter's trembling hand reached for me, not him. "Dad, what do we do now?" she whispered. And in that instant, I knew the final act of this twisted play had begun. Her hand in mine was trembling, fragile yet firm. That single gesture, her reaching for me instead of him, was the quiet confirmation I had been waiting for. For the first time since this nightmare began, my daughter wasn't blinded by his charm. She was awake. And the timing couldn't have been crueler, because outside the fairy tale was vanishing before our eyes. By noon, the once magical venue looked like a battlefield in reverse, an unmaking of dreams. Chandeliers dimmed, floral arches dismantled, chairs stacked in uneven rows. The scent of wilting roses clung to the air, heavy and bitter, like the aftertaste of betrayal. Caterers loaded crates back into vans, their eyes downcast, avoiding confrontation. The string quartet left without playing a single note. Even the wedding planner, once so polished and commanding, now stood slack-jawed, mascara smudged, clutching her useless clipboard like a broken shield. It was brutal. Beautiful in a twisted way. The $150,000 spectacle evaporated piece by piece, each fragment a testament to arrogance undone. My daughter stood in the center of it all, veil in hand, staring at the unraveling with tears streaming silently down her cheeks. I wanted to take the pain from her, to shield her eyes from the wreckage. But no, she needed to see this. To see what love built on lies really looked like when stripped of money. "This was supposed to be perfect," she whispered. I put my arm gently around her shoulders. Perfection built on poison never lasts. He appeared then, charging into the chaos, barking at staff like a general watching his army desert. His jacket hung open, his tie askew, sweat glistening on his forehead. "Where the hell are you going?" he shouted at the florists, who didn't even pause as they carried crates to their van. "You're under contract." One of them turned, pointing at me. "No, sir. We were under his contract, and it's canceled." The groom's eyes darted to me, blazing. "You bastard." "Funny," I said, voice steady. "That's the word I'd use for a man who calls my daughter a liability." My daughter stepped forward, surprising both of us. Her voice wavered, but her courage didn't. "You used me," she said, staring at him with fresh tears. "All of this, all of me, was just a transaction, wasn't it?" For a heartbeat, silence. Then he laughed, short, bitter, ugly. "Don't flatter yourself. You were a means to an end. A pretty face attached to a fat checkbook. That's all you were ever going to be." Her hand flew to her mouth, a sob breaking free. I caught her before she stumbled. My fury burned so hot I thought my body might ignite. The staff froze, tension thick enough to choke on. No one dared move. No one dared breathe. It felt like the entire room had been waiting for this moment, when the prince revealed himself to be nothing more than a leech in a stolen crown. I stepped closer, voice low, lethal. "The wedding is over. Get out." But he didn't flinch. Instead, his smirk returned, twisted and venomous. "You think you've beaten me? You think canceling some flowers and music ends this? You've underestimated me from the start." He leaned in, his whisper venomous, meant only for me. "Money was never the only thing I wanted, and if I can't have her the easy way, I'll take her the hard way." The blood drained from my face as I realized the fight wasn't over. It was only about to turn darker. For years, I'd taught myself to read faces, the subtle cracks behind polite smiles, the tremors behind confident words, but nothing compared to the sight of him now. The mask was gone. The polished grin, the charming tone, the practiced gallantry, it had all burned away. What remained was raw, ugly hunger. And it wasn't for my daughter's heart. It was for ownership. The venue was eerily quiet now. No music, no laughter, no clinking glasses. Just the shuffle of staff leaving and the faint echo of dismantled decorations. Against that silence, his breathing was ragged, his eyes unblinking, locked on her like a predator cornering prey. My daughter clung to me, her fingers digging into my sleeve. I could feel the tremor in her body, the silent scream trapped in her chest. He finally spoke, voice low but sharp enough to cut glass. "Do you know what you've cost me?" I met his glare. "My daughter's freedom." His laugh was hollow, manic. "Freedom? Don't kid yourself. She doesn't know what she wants. Without me, she's nothing." Her voice, though trembling, broke through the air. "Stop lying." He turned to her, and for the first time, there was no pretense, only obsession. "Lying? No. I made you into someone valuable. I polished you, dressed you, elevated you. You were going to be the jewel in my crown. And now you think you can walk away? I stepped between them, every muscle taut. She doesn't think it. She knows it. You're finished. For a moment, his facade cracked further, rage spilling out unchecked. Finished? No. You're the one who's finished. Do you think money scares me? I can make more. Do you think exposure ruins me? I'll rebuild. But if you take her away... He stopped himself, but the silence was worse than the words. His jaw clenched, his eyes darkened. That was when I understood. This wasn't about money anymore. It wasn't about status. It was about control. Losing her meant losing the illusion that he was untouchable. And he couldn't stomach that. He lunged forward suddenly, slamming his hand on the table between us. My daughter gasped, flinching back. The sound reverberated like a gunshot in the hollow hall. I didn't move. I couldn't afford to. If I showed fear, he'd feed on it. Instead, I locked eyes with him, steady as stone. You want control? I said softly. Then here's your reality. You don't have her. You don't have this wedding. And soon, you won't have a reputation left to hide behind. Everyone will see you for what you are. His lips curled back, a twisted snarl replacing the last trace of civility. You don't get it. I don't care about them anymore. The only thing that matters now is not letting her go. The words hung heavy in the air, poisoning every breath. My daughter's voice broke, desperate. Dad! I squeezed her hand. Stay behind me. He tilted his head, studying us both like a cornered wolf calculating its next move. His smirk returned, not polished, not charming, but feral. And then he reached into his jacket pocket. My blood froze. He wasn't reaching for a phone this time. The glint of metal flashed beneath the dim light. The game had ended. Now it was war. Time slowed. The faint gleam of metal in his hand fractured my world into sharp edges of fear and resolve. The venue, once meant for vows and celebration, had become a silent theater of survival. No audience, no music. Just us. A father, a daughter, and the man who thought he owned her. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about legacy or money or appearances. I was thinking only of her heartbeat against my arm, fast and fragile, and how I'd trade anything, everything, to keep it going. Put it down, I ordered, my voice steadier than my racing pulse. He smirked, lifting the object fully into the light. A knife. Small, but sharp enough to gleam menacingly. His hand was steady, too steady. Why would I? He asked, eyes locked on her. She was mine. You don't get to take her away. She was never yours, I growled. His gaze flicked to me, hatred burning. You think you're saving her? You're condemning her. Without me, she'll crawl back to you, pathetic, dependent. At least I could have made her important. My daughter's voice cracked, trembling but brave. Important to who? To you? That stopped him for a heartbeat. Just long enough. I stepped forward, blocking her completely. You want me? Fine. Take your rage out on me, but you don't touch her. His jaw clenched. You'd die for her? Yes, I said without hesitation. That's the price of love. For the first time, doubt flickered in his eyes. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by madness. He lunged. The world exploded into motion. The knife slashed downward, a streak of silver. I caught his wrist mid-air, the impact jarring through my bones. His strength shocked me, fueled by obsession and rage. We grappled, crashing into a table that splintered under our weight. My daughter screamed, her cry echoing through the empty hall. Adrenaline surged through me. This wasn't just a fight for control. This was a fight for her future, her safety, her very life. Every memory, her first steps, her first heartbreak, every bedtime story, burned behind my eyes, fueling my grip. He snarled, trying to twist the blade free. "You can't stop me!" "Yes," I hissed through clenched teeth. "I can." With a final surge, I twisted his wrist. The knife clattered to the floor, skidding across the marble. For a moment, his mask of power shattered completely. He was just a man, weak, desperate, exposed. But victory didn't feel sweet. As he fell back, groaning, clutching his arm, I stood over him, chest heaving. The knife lay between us, glittering like temptation. My hand hovered, trembling. One choice could end it forever. My daughter's voice cut through the storm. "Dad, don't." I froze. Her eyes, wet with tears, pleaded with me. Not for herself, but for me. She knew what I was capable of in that moment, and she knew the cost. If I ended him, I'd carry that shadow forever. If I spared him, he might still come back. That was the true price of love, sacrifice, not just for her, but for the man she needed me to remain. I stepped back, forcing myself to let the knife lie. My fists clenched, my fury caged, but still alive. "Get out," I said, voice low and dangerous. "If you ever come near her again, you won't leave next time." He staggered to his feet, eyes full of venom, but something in him had cracked. Without another word, he stumbled toward the exit, the echo of his retreating steps, the sound of his empire collapsing. I held my daughter close, her sobs soaking my shirt. I had protected her. I had won. But as I stared at the broken shards of tables, the abandoned decorations, the ghost of what was supposed to be her happiest day, I realized winning didn't feel like victory. It felt like loss. The silence after violence is the loudest thing in the world. When the doors slammed shut behind him, all that remained was the echo of destruction. The chandeliers still glimmered, but their beauty mocked us, reflecting shattered glass and broken chairs. The once flawless aisle, lined with flowers hours ago, was now a battlefield. And at the center of it stood my daughter and me, holding on to each other as if the ruins might swallow us whole. Her sobs eventually slowed. She pulled back slightly, her face pale, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "Dad," she whispered, voice trembling. "Everything's ruined." I wanted to tell her no, that it wasn't, that we'd rebuild, that joy could return. But the truth pressed heavy on my chest. "Yes," I admitted softly. "The wedding is ashes, but you—" I touched her cheek gently. "You're safe. That's all that matters." She shook her head. "No, Dad. I wanted to believe he loved me. I thought I was choosing happiness, but I chose a nightmare." Her words stabbed deeper than his knife ever could. I walked slowly across the hall, surveying the wreckage. Each step echoed like a confession. The tables we'd paid for, the flowers we'd ordered, the champagne that would never be poured. It all felt like ghosts of promises never kept. $150,000. That was the cost of this illusion. But the real price had been her heart. I found the knife still lying on the floor. For a long moment I stared at it. The blade was clean, untouched by blood, yet it carried the weight of what could have been. I picked it up carefully and dropped it into a nearby trash bin, burying it beneath crumpled linens. Some weapons don't belong in the light. She came up beside me, her voice small. "Do you hate me for believing in him?" The question nearly broke me. I turned, gripping her shoulders firmly. "No, never. Love blinds us all, sweetheart. But you saw his true face before it was too late. That's not weakness. That's survival. Her tears welled again, but this time they didn't fall. You saved me, Dad, twice. From him and from myself. I wanted to be strong for her, but in that moment, my own tears threatened. The anger I had carried all night dissolved into something heavier. Sorrow. We left the hall together, stepping into the night air. The city was quiet, as if unaware that a war had been fought inside that venue. The neon glow of streetlights spilled across her white dress, now torn and stained. It was supposed to be the happiest night of her life. Instead, it was a scar neither of us would forget. As we walked to the car, she asked softly, "What now?" I exhaled, staring at the horizon. Now, we rebuild. Not weddings, not illusions. Life, trust, ourselves. But even as I said it, a part of me knew rebuilding wouldn't be easy. Love leaves shadows. Betrayal leaves scars. And revenge, even the justified kind, takes something from you that you can't get back. The man was gone, but his shadow lingered. In her eyes, in mine, in the ashes of a wedding that would never be. As I drove us away, I couldn't shake the thought. He's out there still. Broken, yes. Defeated, maybe. But shadows don't vanish. They wait. And if he ever came back for her, he'd find a father no longer willing to stop at warnings.